Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. It's been 5 years since he killed us. It was a good Saturday, like a really good one. Everyone woke up in a good mood and everything was going well. Our children were especially happy because I was making them fun-shaped pancakes. He played with them while I cooked. We had a wonderful breakfast together. We went to the park that afternoon. They played and we talked. He said he loved me and was happy. He was happy, and so was I, our children happy and healthy. I thought life couldn't get any better. We got back home and we ordered in. We laughed at the table. Our youngest daughter discovered she loved mushrooms even though they looked weird to her at first. After dinner, we played with them and made a mess of our living room. But it was a good mess, a happy mess. We put the kids to bed early and watched TV. I fell asleep on the couch. Then I woke up around midnight. I went to our bedroom and he wasn't there. I checked the kids' bedroom, then I went back to our bedroom thinking that he went out to get a bite or something. I tried to sleep but I couldn't. After an hour of waiting, I called him. At first the phone rang like normal. The second time I called, it went straight to voicemail. He didn't come home that night, and that morning I discovered that a lot of his things were missing. I called everyone we knew. No one knew where he was. I didn't speak to him for over a week, if you can call a single text saying don't contact me as speaking. Then he finally spoke to his sister as she had threatened to contact the police if he didn't. She was the one to tell me he's never coming back and that he wants a divorce. A few days after that, I was contacted by the law firm he had hired. A year later we were divorced. I didn't once see him, nor did his 4 kids. I was blindsided by this because we were happy. He even agrees we were happy. I was heartbroken, and it would be a lie not to say that I am still wounded. Then after 5 years of no contact, he wants to talk. Says he misses his kids, and now he regrets destroying us. Destroying our children. He killed us for nothing. He destroyed our children. They cried for him every day. They reached out to him on social media but he blocked them. They called him and he would block them more. They watched him live a life without them, a life where there was no space for them. But now he misses them and he wants his family back. I can never forgive him. He doesn't get a second chance to break our hearts. There is no redemption and there is no reconciliation for him. Edit. When he left, we spoke only through lawyers or through his sister who hates his guts. And occasionally I would hear about him from the wives of his 2 former friends. When asked by all these people, his answer was always, I just wanted a new start. I wanted things to be different. I wanted new experiences. When asked if he was happy in the marriage, he would say he was happy. He always said our marriage was a good one, and he never spoke badly about me. It always kills me to hear that because I can accept him being unhappy, but hearing he broke our hearts just because he wanted something different just really breaks me into pieces. As for the was there another woman question, yes there were, apparently there were many. I found that out during the divorce process, as I never suspected him of cheating. So I had to have it spelled out to me by my lawyers. He couldn't even be there in the room, so he zoomed in from the cruise he was on with his then new woman. He pretty much dated a new woman every few months. The younger women he was chasing rarely dated him, and if they did, they were done with him within a month. Then on to the next one. He tried to live a life way beyond his means and abilities. That's pretty much how he got himself into financial difficulties. Then he got engaged to his old colleague who I actually knew. She broke up with him because he wouldn't stop cheating on her, which was ironic since she was hooking up with him when he was a married man. I don't understand what she expected to be different. I know that the past 2-ish years haven't been easy for him, as he lost his job, his cars, and was foreclosed on. I know he isn't coming back for genuine reasons, but because being with me and the kids was the last time he was really happy. He wants the familiarity of us, not because he loves us and is remorseful. Now for the top comments. They reached out to him on social media but he blocked them. They called him and he would block them more. There's some things that simply can't be forgiven, and this is one of them. That's literally one of the most painful things a parent could do to you, purposefully choose to cut you off. It shows they don't care if you're alive or dead. Screw your ex-husband, your children, and you deserve a happy life. And child support. I hope he is paying the child support. Not likely considering, he is a trash human. He is trash financials per OP. You are right on the money. He paid for the first 6 months and then started to avoid paying and was always in arrears. Eventually he stopped paying altogether. He owes me over $80K in child support. I used to manage all our finances, so without me, he quickly spiraled into debt. From what I know through his sister, he is in debt for nearly $200K. The majority of that debt was due to him opening a restaurant and bar right before the pandemic hit, and by the mid-2020, it had to close down. Are your children aware? What do they think? I am sorry for you. I would never come back from this either. It takes major audacity to pull this crap. I don't think the kids should be aware just yet. Not sure how old they are now, but when they are 18, OP should give them his info and let them know they can contact him if they so choose. In the meantime, take note of him reaching out now, so when the kids are old enough, they know exactly when he went from blocking them on social media and hanging up on them, to deciding he deserved to have them in his life. He will try and make it out as though OP kept them from being in touch. And if they aren't already, get some therapy for the kids. As a child who was in a similar situation to OP's children, I highly disagree. OP shouldn't badmouth him to her children, but she also shouldn't keep things from them. Our mother never spoke terribly of him, but she was always very transparent when we had questions. I'd have felt so betrayed if my mother knew how terrible he was in everything he'd done, but kept it all from us. It's better to be prepared for the type of person he is than to have it sprung upon you all at once when you're finally an adult. It can be extremely difficult to process. I'm extremely grateful that my mother always answered our questions objectively and never tried to hide anything from us. I honestly can't imagine how difficult it would have been if she hadn't told us anything, and then when we're adults to finally say, here's your father's information, you can contact him now, and then hear who knows what from him. And in my case, when he finally reached out to me as an adult, he spun the most atrocious lies about how he tried so hard to be in our lives, but our mother prevented it. I think OP should be clear with her children and answer all questions they might have. Obviously within reason, but I absolutely 100% disagree with keeping it from them until they come of age. That can be so damaging. And I agree completely with some commenter, it's an excellent way to alienate her kids if she doesn't keep them informed, again within reason. But yes to therapy. I think putting them in therapy as children to help them process everything safely would be an excellent idea. I do not badmouth him at all. My kids like you really had their heart broken by him repeatedly. So even if I wanted to, I wouldn't need to. Just like you, my kids begged me to call him, and we did many times, and he would literally block our numbers, and if we managed to get through, he immediately would shout at me saying, anything you need to tell me, you tell it to my lawyer, and that was when he was being polite. When my oldest got a phone, he called him regularly, and even created himself a fake Instagram account, because ex-husband had him blocked. He figured out with a friend of his where he lived at the time, and they went. His dad literally shut the door in his face. My son never even told me. I only found out because his friend was worried about him. Eventually, after all the heartache, they just gave up reaching out to him. It's one thing to want to end your marriage. It's another thing to be so cruel to your own flesh and blood. My father did that to us. I was 14, my brothers were 16, 12, 10, and 8. We grew up, got married, had kids. Try explaining to your kids that yes, they do have a grandfather, but they'll never know him. My dad is in his 70s now and all alone. And now he wants to see us and meet his grandchildren. He doesn't want to be an old man and die alone. We all told him to F off. Next story. My daughter's bully married into our family. If you or someone you know are struggling with an eating disorder or self-harm, please seek assistance in your battle. You are not alone. My daughter was a sophomore when the bullying began. I'm unsure why Ella and her friends began targeting her. They made comments about her body, her nose, everything. My daughter developed an eating disorder and began to rapidly lose weight because of the intense exercises and long fasting periods she forced herself to endure. Ella and her friends showed no mercy though and continued to harass my daughter. My daughter began engaging in destructive behaviors and at one point was hospitalized. It took a lot of fighting, but I was able to get the school to punish these girls for my daughter's suffering. When my daughter graduated, I thought Ella would be a person of her past. But then her older brother began dating her when my daughter was wrapping up her 3-year in university. It hurt my daughter so much that her brother would date someone who tormented her so closely to death. There were nights where would cry herself to sleep, wondering why this was going on. It hurt me as a mother to watch this happen. My son ended up marrying Ella. I have allowed this, but kept my distance from Ella. I recently hung out with my daughters-in-law and daughter without inviting Ella. I have 3 other sons, and 2 of them are also married. At a recent gathering, one of my daughter-in-law expressed gratitude because I had given her an opportunity to get out of the house because of stress with the kids. I planned a girls' night out with my daughter and 2 other daughters-in-law, and we kept this secret from Ella. Ella eventually got the full story out of my eldest son and was hurt. She asked me what she had ever done to make me treat her differently from the others, so I let her have it. I told her that her treatment of my daughter in their high school years is why I will never view her as a member of this family. I told her that I had already been kind enough to allow her to be near my family and that she should not push her luck. She left with my son, and he later told me that she cried herself to sleep that night. Ella never gave a proper apology to my daughter for the damage she had done. She even jokes about their past in the form of dark humor. I fear my son may go no contact, but I will not chase him because he chose this awful person over his sister. She hasn't been doing it anymore, but there were no attempts to make amends either. Why did her brother start dating her? Didn't he know the trauma she caused? Right. The brother is a POS for even associating with that person in the first place. She ruined his sister's self-esteem and self-image. It's messed up. My sister married my stalker and gave him access to my life. Some siblings really just don't care. It's sick. This reminds me of my ex-roommate's sister, who married the guy who assaulted her. They had 3 kids and are still together to this day. I was always distant when going to their house with my roommate, never comfortable in that house at all. She talks about it with dark humor. Isn't that what the victim does to cope, not the one who caused the trauma? Good on you for choosing your daughter over this woman. And if your son goes no contact, it'll hurt, but it's for the best. He chose to marry the woman who nearly tormented your daughter to death knowingly, and that's so gross. If I was his sister, I would never forgive that. Ella can cry herself to sleep all she wants. Sounds like she deserves to cry. Right. I audibly said you can't be freaking serious upon reading that line. She cannot be that daft or detached from reality that she thinks this family forgot what she did to a member of them almost to death. Especially if she thinks she can joke about it to this family too. Crazy thing is, most bullies are that daft. The majority of them don't actually remember being awful because that's too hard to cope with. So the brain will rewire the memory so they aren't the bad guy. Try confronting any of your high school bullies. You'll probably will get something along the lines, "I'm sorry you felt way about it, but I don't remember us ever having a problem." Not sure who is worse here, your son or his wife. Boo frickin' who that she cried herself to sleep. Deal with it. She's a menace. She still won't apologize because she's not sorry. As an adult, if you did crappy things and you get the opportunity to apologize, you do it. If you don't, it shows lack of growth and maturity. She's still the mean girl by joking about it. Horrible behavior has consequences, but instead, she'll blame you or most likely your daughter. Last story. My son wants to be a part of my life again, and I don't know if I should let him. My 41 male family situation is a bit difficult. My ex-wife and I have been together for many years. During these years, our life was okay. It wasn't perfect, but good enough that we decided to have children. She had been horrible towards me basically the entire time. But being the naive guy I was, I thought it would be a normal thing and got used to it. This is important later. We had 2 children, my daughter 21 female and my son 19 male. Over the years when we grew up, our house started to get 2 different camps with totally different interests. It would be my daughter and me, and my son and his mom. I always bonded better with my daughter than with him as we shared many interests. And the same applied to my son and his mother. He was an absolute mama's boy. These camps soon turned into rivalries that also caused huge arguments here and there, and not rarely my ex-wife would get physical. Over the years I suppressed my own emotions because I knew that if I'd let them happen, I'd probably end up leaving my wife, and I never wanted my children to grow up with their parents separated. I always thought to myself that since she never got physical when the children were there, they hopefully wouldn't get traumatized by it. And I took it for many years, but then something happened that went far beyond the borders. 3 years ago, my daughter introduced her girlfriend to us, and she officially came out as lesbian. My ex-wife and my son reacted so insanely hostile towards that I decided that I had enough. Incredibly homophobic comments, and my son once even slapped her. I filed for divorce, and I moved with my daughter into our own home. I was financially stable to take care of her, and I knew that she deserved a loving environment no matter what. Shortly afterwards, my son began to spread the rumor that my ex-wife filed for divorce because I allegedly cheated on her, and for some reason many people believed him, except for my daughter and some really good friends. I felt hurt and betrayed. Every attempt of calling him and talking to him about this failed, and I decided to take the drastic step and disinherit him from my will as a consequence, and go no contact since he didn't want to talk to me anyway. He was still in his mother's will, so I thought he was fine. By doing this, I also cut the contact with my ex-wife. My daughter was surprisingly fine with this. I thought she would miss her brother and her mom more often, but she didn't. I saw how happy she was with her girlfriend who visited us several times, and for 3 years we didn't hear from them. Fast forward to yesterday when I received a call from my son. He somehow found out my number. He said that he knows that he probably doesn't deserve the chance, but if he could come over to talk. I was still angry at him, but since he is my son, I decided to at least give him a chance to explain himself. When he came over, I noticed that he had bruises on his face. I sat him down on the couch when he started slowly apologizing. His face was completely without any emotion at first, and then all of a sudden he broke down crying, telling me how sorry he was and that he wants to be with me. He explained that when I left, she began mistreating him too. She would often beat him and blame him for everything that happened. He said he is also sorry for the homophobic BS towards his sister and just wishes to hug her and apologize. She wasn't home at the time. He said that he did it because he was angry at me for allegedly tearing apart the family. That's what he thought all that time was the truth, but now he knows that it was wrong. I told him that I understand him when it comes to his mother because I was in a similar position, but I also need time to think about this and ask his sister first before I do anything. He wiped the tears from his face and nodded. He then gave me his number and left. And now I am ambiguous. He is my son, but on the other hand, he hurt and betrayed me really bad. What I have to do is to talk to my daughter about this. If she agrees to let her brother live with us, then I consider it. But only then. Now for the advice. I feel like he's a victim and at least has diminished responsibility for his actions. Not saying he's completely innocent, so maybe the best way to help is getting him somewhere safe, whether that's with you or somewhere else, and into some therapy. And he was around 16 when he took sides after being, I guess, indoctrinated. When I was 16, I was very emotional and prone to taking sides in my parents' relationship issues, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with those decisions now. In any event, he's looking for help, and he desperately needs it. Well, he definitely can't continue living with her. If he can't move in with you, arrange for him to stay with a family member, or pay rent for a room somewhere if you can afford it. Don't think of it as a betrayal. Your wife twisted him since childhood. He was manipulated. I agree. It's really hard, and what did was horrible. But he's also a victim of your ex-wife. It's a great thing that at 19, he has finally come to his senses and to make amends. Lol, how about taking some responsibility instead of pinning it all on your wife? You raised him too, or you should have. Most people just shouldn't even have kids. Edit. So many of you misunderstood what I said. You assumed I'd just let him stay with his horrible mom. No, I do not. That wasn't the question. Of course I'm going to help him getting out of there. The question is if I let him stay with us. I might be able to forgive him, but if my daughter says she feels unsafe with him around, I help him finding a different place to stay. Currently he stays with a friend, so he's safe. Back then, he wanted to stay with his mom, and he was the one that initiated the no contact by not answering any of my calls and completely deleting me out of his life. And considering she never was physically harming him or my daughter, I assumed she is able to control herself towards her children. And I truly thought it would be way less traumatizing if their parents would stay together, because I know what it's like growing up between separated parents. I only did what I thought was the best for them, and I know that I was wrong there. But calling me a horrible parent for not immediately reconciling and putting my daughter's concerns first isn't right either. I do want to help him no matter the outcome. He is still my son, but letting him stay with me is something that I simply have to talk through with my daughter. Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. Am I wrong for not backing up for my family after my wife giggled at their news? Original post. I 27 male, have a beautiful wife Amara 26 female. Anyway, onto the situation that happened a week ago. When I was 17, I had a girlfriend who cheated on me for my brother. We were together since kindergarten, even though our relationship was fake in elementary school and middle school. We decided to make it official in high school. But after a year of making it official, my brother tells me that she and him were seeing each other behind my back. I was extremely hurt, especially since my parents knew, but they thought the relationship was still a playful one, even though I told them the news first. After that, I decided to just focus on school and move out of my parents' house, especially since they didn't have the decency to at least be romantically involved in private. X still tried to apologize and ask if we could be friends, but I just ignored her. After I graduated, I moved to Texas at age 19 and only contacted my family on holidays. After 2 years of being there, I met Amara at a bakery her mother owned, and we became friends first due to us both having trust issues, but we made it official a year after meeting. The relationship was great. I loved her family and they loved me. The wedding was absolutely wonderful, even when my parents and brother didn't come, though I sent an invitation and called them the day before. And I realized that if my wife were ever in an argument with someone, even if she was wrong, I'd always have her back. Now a week ago, my mother called me to ask if we could talk. She was on speaker since Amara and I were cooking. She knows about what my family has done and how they backed up my brother, so I didn't mind putting the phone on speaker since the only conversations I have with my family is about my brother. Well, my mom goes on to tell me how my brother and ex are getting married, and he wants me to be his best man. It was silent for a bit, and Amara burst out with giggles and I joined in after her. My mom hung up, and I didn't bother calling her back and enjoyed my night with my wife. The next morning, I was bombarded with angry texts from my brother and dad on how I hurt my mother's feeling and made her cry by not telling my wife to not laugh. I don't think I did anything wrong. I technically didn't do anything, but I can somewhat say that it was childish, but it was a spur of the moment. So am I wrong for not backing up my mom? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Wait, why is your mom asking you to be your brother's best man? That's super weird. Why isn't that coming from him? Very clearly not in the wrong. Laughing is about the nicest thing you can do in a situation like this. Although, there was a great post a while back about somebody who accepted being best man and then gave a speech recounting all of the details of the cheating, dropped the mic and left. So that's always an option for you. She was the messenger, he asked her to ask me. Why? I'm not sure, she only said your brother feels bad, but he thinks this is a way to reconcile, so would you like to be the best man? That's what caused my wife to laugh. Have you been zero contact with your brother since he started seeing your ex? I've decided to move past everything and try to keep in contact with him, but he's the one who gave up trying. Not wrong. It is kind of funny how they didn't show up for your wedding, but want you to be there for your brothers. Did they give you an explanation on why they were a no-show? If I had to guess why they want you there, is because people are bound to ask why you aren't at your brother's wedding, and they want to save face. They said my brother felt sick and he didn't want to go, so they just decided to stay with him. So, clearly they are SVP they'd be going, and you knew they had tickets booked and knew what hotel they were staying at, right? Because if not, then nope, they just lied to you. They didn't even leave Michigan. Apparently, he got sick the day before I called them. Not wrong. The only reason I would think an estranged brother who skipped your wedding would want you as his best man, as he marries your childhood ex, is to make sure he rubs your face in it one more time. And your parents didn't come to your wedding either, and your mother decided she could be the messenger. What the heck is wrong with your birth family? Now for the updates. Hi everyone, I'm here to let everyone know what happened the week after the initial situation. After the week of the incident, and many rude texts from my brother and father, I decided to contact my brother and told him how it was unfair of him to not come to my wedding, but then asked me to come to his. Well, some of you were spot on. My brother didn't want to come to my wedding, so my mother made up a lie instead of telling the truth. And he never asked for me to be his best man, nor was I even invited. I called my mother and asked her what the hell was going on, and she told me that she just wanted her sons to get along again. So even if I were to accept the now fake offer, the situation would have gone way worse since I wasn't invited. I've decided for the sake of my wife and I's future I will be limiting contact with my side of the family. I've also mentioned in the comments that my wife is pregnant, so I have that to look forward to instead of a crap show. Amara and I also appreciate the kind words from some of you. Update 2. I think I posted the first update last night or yesterday, I don't remember, but hello again. The situation has now spread from just my wife and I to my wife's side of the family. A friend of my ex found the post, and I guess the news spread like wildfire, and I was now getting texts from my immediate family and my ex and brother's friends. I've ignored it at first, until some really hurtful things was said about my wife regarding her family and pregnancy, which caused my wife to have a panic attack since she couldn't calm down. I don't know if I could say what they said since it was very harsh and racist, but I've now gone from limited texts to ignoring my whole family. I've decided to turn my phone off altogether, but I do appreciate every one of you, but I'm going to take this time to spend it with my wife and her family. We are now focusing on the pregnancy and getting things ready for 9 months of fun and weird cravings. Update 3. Hello. Exactly 21 days ago, I've made a decision that has been the best decision of my life, and I'm just giving a small update. 1. My family is no longer in my life. 2. My wife read the post and comments and she loves all of you, but was upset that I said she giggled. So she wanted me to clear it up and let you all know it was a full cackle. 3. Our little baby is growing and healthy, hoping for a girl. But that's all. Once again, thank you all. We love you. Oh, my favorite show. Spot the favorite child. And then my favorite, 30 minutes of parental rebuttals. So much fun to watch them tie themselves into pretzels trying to deny the obvious. What a piece of trash family. Edit, not the wife is great. A friend of my ex found the post, and I guess the news spread like wildfire, and I was now getting texts from my immediate family and my ex and brother's friends. I have the feeling dear bro and ex are humiliated, the absolute gossip of their town, and I'm honestly living for it. Bet the friend of the ex wasn't friend enough to not share it around lol. What was mom's plan here? Like, okay, she wants her sons to reconcile, but what if OP had said yes and then called his brother all like, hey, so I'm your best man, what weekends work for your bachelor party, while his brother was not even planning to invite him? Given my history with my mother hounding me for around 4 years to be the bigger person with my brother, who cut me out of his life, there is no plan. Parents like that just want the happy family. No other thoughts. My thoughts are if you were decent parents in the first place, you could have a semi-normal family instead of the disaster you are ineptly attempting to fix. My mother is in a timeout right now because I got tired of the situation. Heck, even our sister's husband told mother to cut it out. Yeah, mom's such a moron that she thinks them being in the same room would constitute progress. She'd be surprised when it ended in a fight in full no contact. Some people just don't think ahead, they just make the next move. Next story. Update. Am I wrong for hating that my ex is living with my parents? Original post. At the start of this year, I, 29 female, was stalked and harassed by a woman who believed that I was having an affair with her husband. It was over a month of daily harassment over phone, on social media, and at times even in public. She even threw a stone through my window and vandalized my car in my driveway. She was caught on security camera and charges were brought against her. I had to spend a lot on lawyers to threaten legal suits against both the husband and wife to get her to back off. She was having some sort of a mental breakdown and went into a psych hold. Her meds helped, and she agreed to stop and accepted that I wasn't the involved party. As part of our legal agreement, she made social media posts apologizing and clearing my name, and some financial recompense for damages caused. During all this, my fiancé, 32 male, was of no help at all. We lived together and he wouldn't do anything to support me. When I got accosted in public places, he'd simply leave. When our condo was attacked, he got in his car and left to stay with a friend. He said it was too embarrassing for him to stay around. He didn't seem to realize that I was scared and felt my life was in danger. He knew that I was innocent in this, and yet he didn't stop his friends and family from believing the worst about me and making snide comments at me. I begged him to help me, and he'd act frustrated as if there was nothing he could do here. When the woman harassing me made the apology posts, I forwarded them everywhere explaining how I got caught up in someone else's tragedy and then called my fiancé a coward for his behavior, which was also my way of publicly breaking up with him. My parents were very supportive of me throughout this mess, and they gave me money for the lawyer's retainer fee, but they didn't like my public FU to my ex. They said that it was petty of me and asked me to be nicer and not break up. I did eventually remove his name from my posts, but I was not interested in any relationship with him anymore. After this all went away, I was still pretty traumatized and paranoid. I quit my job and I couldn't stand living with my ex. My best friend lived a few states away, and she invited me to stay with her as a change of scenery. It was the break I needed. I also found a great job there while I was visiting and decided to settle there. I've been living in this town since then. I have booked tickets to visit my family for Christmas, and last night my mother told me that my ex is staying with them as a house guest. My mother said he wasn't doing too well after I left, and my parents let him move in with them. I don't want to see my ex, and I am pretty hurt that my parents are taking care of this man who did not stand by me. Would it be wrong if I tell my parents I am not visiting as long as he's in their home? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not wrong. Almost a guaranteed ploy to try to get you two back together. Also, who just lets their daughter's ex move in? Especially the ex that let his friends and family talk crap and ran away anytime she was being accosted and was practically in physical danger. No thank you, no contact until he's gone, and parents get over it. And that's really it. He didn't flee to get help. He wasn't calling the cops. He just walked away and let people attack her. He was an accomplice. It should be no contact forever, given that they would rather you be in a relationship with someone who let people physically accost you than with any other person. That ain't love. Not wrong. Your ex left you alone in dangerous situations, and your parents let him move in. Geez, I'm sorry. They all suck. OP should cancel the trip and go no contact with all three of them. At least parents had the decency to tell her ahead of time. I can only imagine the crap storm it would have been if she found out when she showed up. Nope. There are lots of posts here on AITA of OPs whose parents stay in touch with exes. The general consensus is you can't control what your parents do, but you can control what you do by not visiting while they're there. It also could be the case that they're trying to get the two of you back together. That would not surprise me. So tell them that you will not be able to come home, wish them a happy holiday, and don't get sucked into any arguments or blame. Stay strong, you're 100% in the right. And now for the update. I didn't go home for Christmas. I called my parents and told them I wasn't coming, and that set off a lot of recrimination and arguing. My mom getting upset at me for my coldness and my dad reprimanding me for breaking mom's heart. Mom is trying to get me back together with ex, and dad goes along with whatever mom wants to do. I asked them why they want me to be with someone who didn't protect me, and mom said if the stalker was a man, he'd have protected me. But it was just a woman, a lady from a good home, so there wasn't any real danger. This was news to me because when it was happening, both were worried about my safety, but now they are downplaying it. This is the exact argument X had used, and they are buying into his story. Then mom goes into how this was embarrassing for X, and says I wronged him by putting him in this situation. This brought up a long history of mom's disappointment in me. I was never what she wanted me to be. I know she loves me and had thought our differences were the typical mother-daughter conflict that everyone has, but my mom has fears that run deeper than that. She is a slim, svelte, and a pretty woman who is very particular about manners and appearances. I got my build from my dad's side of the family, and I am very curvy with large breasts. My weight and my figure has been a cause for concern for my mom, who'd pressure me to cover up and downplay it. She wanted me to go into teaching or medicine, but I didn't do well enough in school for that, so I ended up forming a career in sales, and I am very good at it. I was making good money at a large corporation, and while I dress modestly, I was no longer wearing baggy clothes, but professional suits with a good fit. The fact that I look like I do and that I do sales was scandalous to my mother. The guy whose affair brought problems in my life is a manager in the same company I used to work for. We worked on the same floor in different departments. I think he let me take the fall, because knowing who he was having the affair with would have put his job in jeopardy and would have been a lot more scandalous. My mother thinks the wife putting the blame on me was inevitable because I have the look. She thinks her fears about my appearance and career had come true in this incident. She is horrified that instead of learning from my mistakes, I now have a job that is client relationship manager even though it is at a financial firm. She feels pressured to force me to come home and get married and leave my career behind. I am so sad about how all this has turned out. My relationship ended, and now I am losing my parents. Meanwhile, that cheating man and his psycho wife are still married and he still has the same job. I am so sorry. Coming from a woman with a similar look to what you are describing, I feel some type of way personally of your mom blaming your body for being harassed and stalked for a year. Do not think of this as losing. Everyone in this story, from your ex-partner to your parents, are revealing themselves to be people who are unable to be there for you when the chips are down. People who wish to brush away discomfort at their failures to act in support when you need it the most. You have gained insight into them. Never forget it. Thank you for saying that. I am having a hard time accepting this about my parents. They supported me through my difficult times, and they think they are still trying to protect me. They don't see that I'd be happier if they just let me be. This was the first time I was all alone on Christmas. My best friend is the only person I really know here, and her family flew out to be with her in-laws. I am trying to tell myself it'll be okay, but I am feeling so lonely and depressed. I'm a big believer that how people act in a crisis reveals their heart, and how they view their actions after a crisis reveals their character. Some people respond to conflict with a flight response. That happens, but it can't be downplayed afterwards or made to be something it's not. If he can't acknowledge that, he can't work on it and can't learn from it. Everyone wants someone that will have their back when needed. In a friend, in a family member, but especially in a life partner. Amen. My mother yelled at me and my husband heard it, and the first thing he says to me is, "Are you okay? Do you want me to talk to her?" He had my back 100%. Didn't matter that she was a woman or my mom, he knew I was upset and that she was wrong, and he wouldn't stand for that. OP's fiance is a piece of turd. Men can talk to women and tell them their behavior is not okay and to back off without being dangerous or intimidating or anything. Sometimes someone else needs to say something to get it through the offender's head that they're in the wrong. In my case, it wasn't worth it. My mother was not listening to me or anyone at all. No point in trying to get her to listen.